Hello, everyone, and thanks for that wonderful welcome. I'm assuming that's a huge round of applause welcoming me to the stage. It is, once again, a great pleasure to be here. Well, I'm always here, but to be here with you somewhere up in the cloud for our second ever online story slam. We have 280 something in the meeting. It's called a meeting. Doesn't that feel very sterile? This isn't a meeting. This is a community of people, and we have 24 in the waiting room while they're being assessed. They're having their temperatures checked, and they'll be allowed in very soon. I love that line from Julien on the way in. Why let a global pandemic stand in the way of a good night out? It also sounds like the tagline for a horror film where everything goes horribly wrong. But we are so happy to be able to bring you great stories once again, because we were missing it. Everybody was missing the Story Slam. And the best thing about this is not only do we get to see all our friends again, we've new people who haven't been at the Story Slam in person. Maybe they're listening on the podcast, people that I can already, that I can see in the chat, people that feel like old friends now. There's Ainsley Camps. Is it Camps? That's how I pronounce it, in Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. He was there last week. He's there in his lunch hour. So hopefully he will be making everyone else in the office jealous if he's in the office spending his lunch hour with us. We've got people in from Toronto. Doug, I think you were there last week. We've got Julie Mahler from the Czech Republic. Any relation to the fellow who does the music? Are you any relation to the other Mahler? We've Helen Paul in Berlin. Leah Sandman from New Mexico in USA. We've got Saba in California, Brooklyn, Los Angeles, Edinburgh. Ainsley is a woman. Sorry, Ainsley. I was thinking of Ainsley Harriott, celebrity chef, but equally could also be a woman's name. I'm sorry. And also, who else do we have? We have Dublin, Wicklow. Yes, related to Gustav Mahler. Exactly. Play us a tune there on the, what did Gustav Mahler compose? Special prize for anyone who tells me. Symphonies, wasn't it? Anyway, so we are absolutely delighted to be here. We are, as we say in Cork, haunted that it wasn't last night because there was a Virgin Media outage last night. So hopefully we're all here and in the room for tonight, and nothing will happen in that score. But don't worry, if anything goes down, we'll get back on the show on the road again. But that's not going to happen. Hi to Galaxy A5 2016, cute name. Nice to meet you. Great to have a bit of AI in the room as well too. Good to see us branching into that new area. Hello to Maynooth, hello to Phibsborough. So we've loads Cabra, Clontarf, Carlow, Carol Baskin. Great, good old Tiger King's mention. I was watching Tiger King, and by about the third episode, I was so suspicious of everybody. I put a call through to the Enniscorthy County Sheriff's Department to run a background check on my own wife because I couldn't trust anyone else after that. So Ian McMahon from Drumcondra. Ian is my teacher name. Good old teachers disguising their names on social media in case your students look them up. Hello from Blessington, London. Oh, it's brilliant. We've so many people in. We're over the 300 mark. Excellent, 314. Just Niamh waiting outside there. So we are ready to start. We have three great storytellers who are lined up. What we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to say hello to them, just so you can see, because there's a couple of pictures across your screen there of people, but three of them are storytellers. And we'll say hello to them first, and then we'll start. So, do you, Julian, have you any other instructions about mailing lists or anything like that? Do you want to do that at this stage, or will we?
No. We'll meet our storytellers first.
Meet our storytellers first. And for anybody who's just joined, often me and Julian will run through the actual mechanics of the thing in front of you, rather than sorting it out in advance. It's just to create, because we're actually really well polished, but we need to make it look a bit rough around the edges, just because I live in Dublin 8, so it's authentic. That's how it works. So we have three storytellers, and we're going to introduce you to them now. First up, hello to Nuala Moore. Nuala Moore, hello, Nuala Moore.
Hi.
Say hello.
Hi.
Nuala, you are in, first of all, actually tell us where are you zooming from?
I'm zooming from Ingle, County Kerry, and yeah, the real capital of Munster.
Yes.
And I'm in my shop at the moment, yeah.
And your shop sells sheets?
I know, yeah. Bedding.
Bedding.
So we're closed. I'm unemployed.
Let's make sure that when anybody within a 100-mile radius needs sheets, when all of this opens up again, they'll be into Nuala Moore's shop. What's it called?
Strawberry Beds.
Strawberry Beds. Oh, brilliant. Strawberry Beds on, is it Green? What did you say? Green Street.
Yeah.
Green Street in Dingle. So even if you're just going there as a tourist and you want a souvenir, don't bother getting any of that fungi nonsense. Get a set of sheets. The best souvenir you can get from Dingle. What's that?
And have a meaningful conversation.
A meaningful conversation with Nuala Moore. Nuala Moore is an Irish swimmer. And Nuala, you're known for open water swimming. And as we're about to find out in a little while, ice swimming. I'm looking here. There's one. What's the longest open water swim you have done, Nuala? Just give people a bit of context. Was it 1300k around the coast? A double relay crossing of the English Channel. Did you hop into a boat somewhere along the way and then swim for?
You swim for an hour and then you get back on the boat for 4 hours and then you swim for an hour, and that rotates when you swim from England and back to France, back to England.
And what do you eat during the 4 hours? What's good for eating after you've swum for an hour in the sea?
You only usually just drink fluids and like barmbrack and butter. I'd be old school. I don't like all the jams and rolls and porridge and yeah.
Excellent. So we have been wasting our time with isotonic nonsense. What we need is somebody on a running machine in the ad, a scientist with a flip chart, and then somebody absolutely hounding into the barmbrack and butter, and then a graph showing the scientific display. Excellent. Okay, so that's Nuala Moore. We'll be hearing from Nuala very soon. After Nuala, we have Graham Dunne. Graham, great to see you. That's Graham there in glasses. Graham, tell us a little bit about yourself without telling us the story. Where are you, Graham?
I'm in Leicester in Dublin. A little bit about myself. I do a bit of Toastmastering, so I love doing that. I work in a bank, but I'm also a personal trainer.
Are you?
Yeah, you wouldn't know that to look at me, but
no, sorry, I didn't. Sorry, my "are you" had the wrong tone there. That was more just general interest in a follow-up question. Like, geez, you're not, are you? No, I was. Work on your tone, Colm. Who do you train? Do you have lots of clients?
I don't actually. I used to just do a Sunday morning in a local gym, but of course now we're all not allowed to go down there, so that's it's on the hold for now.
But if anybody wanted a personal trainer to help them over Zoom over the next while, would you be the man? Would you be interested in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my motto is do as I say, not as I do.
Okay.
That tends to work.
Okay, very good. And you do fuck all, is it? And everybody loves you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, so because we like to share any businesses, particularly in this, as we're bringing a big community together. So anybody who needs, so Graham, get in touch with Graham if you want some personal training done over Zoom. So Graham, you're in Leicester and you work in the bank, personal trainer. Where is your job in town? Are you working from home at the moment?
Yeah, I'm normally based in the IFSC, but we're all right. They set us up with some laptops and monitors, so we're able to work from home.
You're there moving Bitcoin around the world or something.
Something like that.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll be hearing from Graham in a while. Let us go on to Callie Ennis. Callie, for anybody, the name might be familiar. You actually, no, tell us about your background. Forget that. Tell us about your room. What's that room there?
This is my middle room. Yeah, I'm a geek, so I like collecting movie stuff and comic book stuff. And this is an enclosure for a chameleon, and that's another major part of my life is animals, creepy crawlies, bugs.
And greeting from one middle room to another. So your basic 3-bed terraced house.
That's me, yeah.
Master bedroom, child, and then the middle room until things take over.
The
is
parlor
yours at the moment. Yeah, the parlor. Excellent.
The parlor, as we used to call it.
Who normally lives in that tank? It's not a member. It's a de facto member of the family, I presume.
Yeah, he's over there. It's a chameleon. He's just in the corner hiding away. You won't see him because he's
a chameleon.
Yeah, he's doing what chameleons do best. But yeah. So
okay, so we are ready to start. Julien, are we removing mics for a round of applause? Or sorry, not removing mics, but unmuting mics.
Yes,
a round of applause from everybody. unmute all. 1, 2, 3, round of applause from everybody. So I think that's everybody. So everybody is everybody muted now except we find
should have
Nuala.
Unmuted.
Nuala is unmuted. So Nuala, in your own time, let's welcome Nuala Moore to the stage. Take it away, Nuala.
Hi everybody, and thanks for listening to my story this evening. So when I was a child, every Sunday I would head out the harbour's mouth with my father on a boat, and he would just throw us in and we would just basically swim to shore. And even though we weren't big swimmers at the time because we were children, there was a great sense of survival within our family. And then as time went on, I became very aware that my father had shaped my swimming, in that he was a huge influence in my life, in the challenges that I took on. So swimming around Ireland and taking on some of the greater swim challenges, the sense of survival and the sense of fearlessness that I had was very much given from my father and his fishing background. So it was very strange for me a few years later when I suddenly became a carer for my father. I was sitting beside the fire looking in and knowing that this was a journey that I would have to take. The flames were going up the chimney and I was just staring in, and I felt so lost. And you know, when you are at the cusp of huge achievements and all of a sudden you don't have any time on your hands and you certainly aren't able to take on these challenges, I felt terrible. I was disappointed, I was traumatized, and mostly I think I was so frustrated with life. But the one thing that I knew is that I had the ability to escape from it all. And I think coming through the life that I lived, I knew that there was a way out. So I set about trying to find a swimming environment that I could achieve in that would be a very short period of time, because marathon swimming, we swim for 5 and 6 and 7 hours at a time. But I needed something short. So I found the International Ice Swimming Association. And 15 minutes is a really long swim, and 30 minutes is you're on the cusp of survival. So I thought, hey, I'm good with that. So I then decided to reach out to the ice swimming community, and you swim in water that is under 5 degrees. So don't get me wrong, caring for my father was not a difficult task, but I knew that I had to find a way out of the life that I was sinking into. So finding water of 5 degrees and under was very, very difficult. The water temperature around the Irish coast is between 7 and 10 degrees. So the only thing that I could do was go to the local fish factory. And I got them to get these big vats. And I asked them if they would fill them up with ice. Now, it's really weird to be standing in a fish factory in your swimming togs, hat and goggles when they're gutting fish. There's fish coming down the conveyor belt, and I'm just sitting there about to get in. Now, the guys got into it really quickly in that they started shoveling ice on top of me. But what was fascinating is that, like, the pain was absolutely intense, but I got a real sense of, yeah, I can do this. So the next thing is that I actually discovered that I was invited to, well, I didn't discover because I did reach out to the community, but I ended up in Tumen, Siberia. And I had signed up for a swimming competition of 1,000 meters of 0 degrees. So Siberia is far eastern Russia. The air temperature was minus 33 and the lake was frozen over. And when we got there, I'm standing in a pool that is made from the ice, and the guys were there with chainsaws, and they're slicing up 1 meter of ice, and I'm sitting there going, well, this is another fine mess you've got yourself into. So the time came to start the race. Now everybody there was swimming 50 meters and 100 meters, but I had signed up for 1,000 meters. So I put my hands on the ladder, and as I was about to take my first step in, and I kept visualizing the ice bucket in the fish factory, and as I was about to take my step into the ice, I suddenly realized, oh my God, I have to swim as well. So my hands got stuck on the ladder because it was minus 33 degree air. And I was trying to unfurl my hands from the ladder and move my feet down. And I have 20 seconds to get in here, get my head in the water and start swimming. And I hadn't thought this through at all. So once I got into the water, and it was black, and for anybody that's ever swam in ice water, cold water, or even had a cold shower, your initial reaction is to do this. And next thing there's a whistle going and it's breathe, and it's like, oh my God, I have to swim. And I started swimming and I couldn't swim. I couldn't function. I couldn't move. So I rotated my arms and I thought, Jesus, what am I doing here? I can't breathe. The girl on the other lane was going up and down. And as she was going up and down, I thought, my God, my last swim was 26 kilometers and I can't get 25 meters up a pool. So I had this huge fight with myself. And I just said, breathe. If you can't breathe, you can't swim. You've got to breathe. So I just kept breathing and I kept functioning and I kept pushing. And I touched the ladder at the top and I came up and I came down. Now the darkness at this stage had come into my head. And I started to panic and the anxiousness came over me and all this stress. And all I could think of was, I have to get out of here. So once I got to the end, after 150 meters, now you have to bear in mind, I rarely would get undressed for anything under 5,000. But I'm standing there at 150 meters getting out of this pool of ice. Now I got up the ladder, and once I got out of the ladder, I thought, you know what, this is okay. But while I was in there, the stress, the anxiety, the pressure, and it was all to do with the fact that I couldn't breathe. Now I won a medal, which was very exciting. And once I got home and I turned the key in the door and I went back in, and my father was delighted to see me. Of course he was, because he was getting fed again. And I told him, I said, you know, Daddy, this is what I did. And I had to get out after 150 meters. And he said, sure, a man can live for 3 days in those waters. And you just kind of cop yourself on and say, you know what, I wasn't dead, so I'm going to figure this one out. Now, strangely enough, I got another invitation to go to Murmansk in Russia. And again, it was inside the Arctic Circle, and it was in 10 weeks after that date. So I sat myself down and I tried to figure out, beside the fire, how the hell am I going to get to this 1,000 meters at zero? Now, bear in mind that no swimmer from Ireland had ever achieved this before, and I would have been about the 5th woman in the world to do this. Now, I wasn't happy with 50 meters or 100 meters or 150. I was going for the 1,000. So I organized my brain to try and understand while I was sitting by the fire and say, okay, how am I going to get to the 1,000? So as time planned, I focused on what was taking my breath away, because the only thing that was stopping me from achieving was breathing. So, and we've all heard of the Wim Hof where we but that's all very fine till the whistle goes and you have to sprint. So I focused on what took my breath away. So I jogged uphill and I brought myself to the tantrum, and I brought myself to the moment where every time I was about to say, I can't, and I would go, and breathe. So I did all of this until I got myself in the game. So I arrived in Murmansk, and this time there was 1,000 competitors, and this time there were 6 lanes in the pool, and I was in the big girl competition. And I thought, Mother of God, what in the name of God have you got yourself into? So I stood on the side of the pool and I just said, you've got this. And I held on to the ladder and I just put my feet down, the first step, the second step, the third step. And I can't describe the pain, but if you can put yourself in the freezer when this is over, but I would suggest please do that under observation. But if you get into the freezer and just literally feel that pain encompass your body, it catches your feet, your fingers, your hands, and then it takes your breath away. And you have got to put your face in that water in darkness with a pincer on your head, and you drive your way through that. So I knew I only had to get up and down the pool 40 times. So I thought about good things about my family, and that only got me through about 5 lengths. So I started to sing a song and I just kept pushing. So once I got up the pool and came down, you get to the point where you start flexing your hands and you start doing these kind of like little body checks to see, okay, I'm still functioning. This is a good thing. And you keep swimming. But what is amazing about it is once you get control of your breathing and once you can push to one side, the fact that this is not life-threatening. You know, there are medical teams there. You have got the power to do this. So I just kept driving through the breathing, and sometimes it became overwhelming. So I got myself back in control again. I kept focusing. If you can't breathe, you can't swim. You can rotate your arms through this. So I touched the ladder, and I remember the last 2 lengths. It was 38 lengths to go, and they have these signs where they flip the chart over and you can see it coming down. I had 2 lengths to go. The leg kick came in. You'd swear to God I was like this little machine coming down the pool. And I don't know whether I was excited to finish it or that I was excited that I'd actually achieved it. And I became aware at that particular moment in time that I was the first Irish swimmer to ever complete this distance, but I was also the 5th woman in the world to achieve it. And I think within it, I became very much aware that this is who we are as people, that this is what we can achieve if we can just get control of the breathing. So I remember just getting myself together, getting my certificate, getting my medals and heading home. And when I turned the key in the door, I remember going in, and the beauty about traveling home when you're caring about somebody is you have to stop at an airport and get a load of sandwiches, because the minute you turn the key in the door, it's, is that you? And you put the kettle on and we sit down and you tell the story and you sit beside the fire again and you chat. And it never mattered to me that other people knew what it was that I had achieved. It was never about the medals. It was never about the certificates. And they meant so much to me because I knew what it took to achieve every one of those medals. And a lot of people say, oh, I didn't know that you've ever achieved these things, but I did it to get through the journey that I was on. And I think for me, the extremes keep us honest. And I think at this moment in time, we probably experience the same thing, that the minute you're hit with these extreme environments, you are so raw, you're broken down to your weaknesses. And I think when you start recognizing your weaknesses, you can build on your strengths. And I think for me, I didn't want to become just a carer for my father. He defined who I was as a person, and he was responsible for giving me the ability to take on the swims that I did because of who he was. So a lot of people would say, how do you swim in the ice? And I would say, well, do you want to meet my daddy? And a lot of it was the fact that as children, he drove us to these extremes in giving us his view of the world, which was fishing. What I will say is that one of the things he always said to me is that a storm can't hit you on 4 sides. And we would discuss this a lot. And he would say that in any boat and in any storm, the boat drives into the waves. Any waves that come from the side or the stern, they can take the boat. The boat has no control. So you drive into a storm. And by driving into the storm, you get to control your outcome. So for me, sitting by the fire, I had a choice that day. I could have sat there and I could have thought, this is my enough. I've had 10 years at the top of my game. I could have accepted it. But the journey that I took through the ice has given me the ability to drive in to all these amazing experiences I've had afterwards, whether they were interlinked or whether they weren't. What I do believe was we are the sum of the parts. And for me, I escape my world every now and then. People come in and they ask for a sheet and they leave with a story. So I hope you enjoyed that.
So that was Nuala Moore. Before we're all, Julian's going to unmute everybody. So Julien, everyone's unmuted. Julien.
Well done, great story. Well done.
So that's the sound of people from about countries bring you on. Nuala, thanks a million. And I would be the same as you. I wouldn't get undressed for less than 5,000 either. It would be euro in my case.
Meters fine.
Yeah, well, you know, we're in the same boat, or not. In fact, we're just jumped out of the same boat. In fact, Nuala, what's next for you? What's your next plan?
2 years ago, I did a swim down the southern tip of Cape Horn, which was a Guinness World Record swim again. And again, that was one that my father had wanted me to do.
Cape Horn, is that South America, or is it
the southern tip of Chile? So I was the first swimmer to swim from the Pacific to the Atlantic across the meridian there in 7 degrees. So that was a tough swim. So I took that.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the risk was that they would lose me. And you see, when you build up the people that I have around me, there's also a chance that they may wish to lose me. So, so I spent all last year paying that off. And this year I was supposed to be, this exact week, I was supposed to be on Mount Everest. Wow. Not to climb the mountain, but I wanted to experience going to 5,000 meters and swimming in a lake at 5,000. Yeah, so it would be to swim a kilometer or a mile at 5,000 meters. Yeah.
Okay. So, meters, is it?
Yeah, well, it's rescheduled for Everest. It's rescheduled for November. Please God, we get there. But if we don't, so be it. Sure, I'm a dreamer.
Yeah, and well, no better occupation to be in for a dreamer than selling bed linen. Thank you so much. And as somebody said, let's everybody make sure if you need any bed linen within a radius, let's all head to Strawberry Beds, Green Street, Dingle, as soon as these crazy restrictions on bed linen sales end. Thank you very much, Nuala Moore, and we wish you the very best of luck with your next trip. So now we will go to Graham Dunn. Hi, Graham Dunn. Let me see if I can find Graham and unmute him. GRE.
Hey, Colm.
You got him. Hi, oh, you're up. Excellent. Okay. So Julian's going to get everybody unmuted again to welcome Graham Dunn to the stage, the virtual stage.
So yeah, and there's a few mics that are just popping up. They're being unmuted for some reason. So just everybody, just to keep an eye on the mics, make sure that you're on mute. I can mute everybody, but for some reason, a few still keep on slipping through the.
Yeah, and to the shadowy figure known as M, who who I think might be a rival ice swimmer. Who didn't want to hear the end of Nuala's story and was just clamping down on it. We've got your number, M. No, I'm only joking. I'm sure it's just one of those things. Anyway, so
I'm going to unmute everybody.
So Julian's going to unmute. Welcome Graham Dunn to the stage. Graham Dunn. Graham is unmuted. So hi. Graham Dunn, in your own time, take it away.
Thanks, Colm. Hi, everyone. When I was younger, I was a bit of a worrier, and like most of my worries, they were all in my head. I was playing football for a team called FC Aylesbury. I used to play right back for them. I was working in a bank. I was number one cashier there, which meant that I was kind of in charge of the team of cashiers. Now, we had great fun in the bank, but I used to always be worrying, are we meeting targets? Are we exceeding expectations? You know, how are we getting on? How am I getting on as well? I'd kind of find myself then on a Friday going drinking with my friends for the weekend, have a great time, then come back to Monday morning and crash back with the worries. Where am I going? What am I doing with my life? I was setting these expectations for myself, and I was wondering, was I meeting them? And I do remember, I was beginning to feel that I was trapped in a life that I was creating by myself. Then on the 28th of August 2006, something happened and it made me think differently about my worries. It was a Monday evening. I was out playing football, training actually, and I returned home late that evening and my mum had my dinner in the oven. I was living at home with my mum and two younger sisters at the time. The dinner just happened to be sausages, mashed potato and baked beans. So it was a dinner of champions and one of my personal favourites. My mum and my sister Leanne were in the kitchen watching telly. I ate my dinner, and then when I got up to put my plate in the sink, I suddenly heard a knock on the door. Now, where the sink is in the house, you can see the front door from there. So from where I was standing, it looked like my other sister Lindsay. She happened to be out with her friends. It looked like her friends at the door. So I walked towards the door and I could see through the stained glass window a few figures. And as soon as I pushed the handle down, the door was forced open and a shotgun was put in my face. I was told to get in and get my fucking head down. I was then frog marched into the kitchen where my mum and sister were. I was tied to the kitchen table or the kitchen chair with some cable ties. Of course, we were a bit. It was terrifying. I remember looking at Leanne; she was stunned. My mum kept asking, "What was this about? What was this about?" And I remember clearly your man saying, "He'll tell you. He knows what this is all about." And then it turns out that I was getting held up in a Tiger raid. We'd been told about it in work, but now not in a million years do you actually think that it's going to happen to you. So after about an hour, they took my mum and Leanne out of the house. Now my mum was only 2 weeks after an operation. Both of them had asthma, so I was really worried about them. When they were gone, I was told that I'd be going into the bank the next morning and I'll be taking whatever cash is in there. We still had to wait for my sister Lindsay to come home. So about an hour or so later, I could hear the front door. Now the house was in pitch black at this stage. And I remember her walking into the kitchen and turning the light on and them grabbing her, and the screams were, and then putting her hand over her mouth. And I remember I had to actually tell her, I was trying to tell her to shut up nearly, because I was trying to explain they have Mum and they have Leanne here. So be quiet. Anyway, that wasn't a nice feeling. The rest of the night, it was pretty much intimidation and threats. I remember one of them, I think he was the leader, he told me that either your ma or your sister is getting a bullet. Now, we said this to your ma and your sister, and your ma has decided that she's going to be the one to get it. So there's nothing like being told that kind of makes you focus your concentration. So the next morning, I went into work. I brought Lindsay with me, and now they had told me before I left. Sorry, they left about 7 a.m. and then I made my normal trip into work. They gave me a duvet to put the cash into, and they gave me a mobile phone, and they told me that I'll be watched from the minute I leave the house till the minute I get to the bank. So when I got there, I met the assistant manager at the front door, and as soon as we walked through, I told him what had happened, and I can still remember the blood draining from his face, the shock. He agreed that we won't contact the police and we'll do what they're after telling us to say, or telling me to do. Now, when I went in that morning, you see this time safe, it's set every night. So I didn't set it the night before, so I didn't know what time the safe was going to open in the morning, and I had to wait for one of the cashiers to come in. And then surely when he came in, he couldn't remember what time he set it until either. So we're sitting around waiting, and you're just waiting for a click in the safe. We were only waiting probably about an hour, but honestly it felt probably like a week. Then the mobile phone he gave me started ringing, and when I answered it, your man was demanding, where's the money? And I thought he was asking, are we messing him around? And I said, we're not. I'm trying to get things done as fast as possible. We haven't called the police. There's nothing to worry about. We're going to get you your money. And then he put my mum on the phone, and I started crying. I could hear her crying. Then the phone just went dead, but almost instantly the safe unlocked. So I clicked, opened it up, took all the cash out, put it in the duvet. It was about 300,000 euro. I scooped it up, and I walked out of the branch. They were ringing me on the phone and instructed me I was to leave. I ended up in a laneway not too far from the bank. They told me to leave the cash, leave the mobile phone, and leave my car there and go for a walk, and they'd ring me on my personal number. So I went walking, and even that walk, you see, because I knew that I had upheld all of my responsibilities for them that night. I'd done everything they wanted me to do, but still there was that period where I'm still, my sisters and my mum still aren't safe, and I don't know where they are. So I was feeling really anxious. Although again, that was only an hour, it felt a lot longer. I got a call, told where they were. I rang the assistant manager in the bank because I had no car. He came down, picked me up, and they were actually in a cemetery not too far from Baldoyle. We got there, and when we arrived, there was police vans, there were sirens, there was a small crowd gathering. I got a bit panicked. I hopped out of the car, ran up, told there was a few guards there. I told them who I was, and then I realised then that my sister had actually, she bit through the cable ties on her and my mum's wrists, and the two of them got free, and they managed to contact the police anyway. So that's how the police were there. At that time, I did know that it was all over. They were safe and I was safe. To this day, nobody has ever been charged for the robbery. But if I could say, like, the robbery itself, it's helped me not be such a worrier. I know it's mad to say. Even in the aftermath we were put up in a hotel, and my sisters were ordering fillet steaks like 3 times a day. And we invited our family over on the Friday evening, and we had total knees up. We drank thousands in free beer. It was all on the bank. And I remember before doing that, I would have been really worried. No, we can't do this. But then I was just like, you know what, fuck it. We'll charge the bank up. And then I suppose what happened then afterwards, and don't get me wrong, it's not something that just flicked overnight. I just kind of got that try not to worry as much as you do sense over me. It did take a while, but now I find actually people coming to me with their worries that I get the opportunity to tell them, you know, not to worry so much. And that'd be my message to anyone here tonight. If you do find yourself worrying about maybe the small things, try not to worry, because what's important is the people you love, and anything outside of that, you know, it's kind of nearly irrelevant. So thanks a million for listening.
So,
kind of endangering yourself, you can be just fine, you know.
So, wow, that is amazing, Graham, Dunne. And you know, like, I've never spoken to anybody who's had that experience. It's, you just see them in the newspaper, you see the stories, and the news story will often wash over us. There was a number of tiger kidnappings around that time. So thank you for, like, you really brought us to that place and how you were feeling. Incredible. And do you think about it much now?
No, not really. Someone might ask you, "Oh, remember that?" You know, it's kind of, it feels like something. It nearly feels that it didn't happen to you in some
or happened
ways.
to somebody else. Did
Happened
it feel
to
like
somebody
it happened?
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a story that I'm aware of sometimes. That's the way I feel.
I like the idea that in the end of year statement for the bank that year, that there was 2 separate items. One was the actual amount that was stolen, for which they were insured, but insurance wouldn't cover the number of thousand run up in the hotel on the Friday. That it actually appears on their annual report, like, you know, one employee's expense, and the proper order as well too. Do you still remember that knees up? Like, is that kind of the all is going to go, that's one we should try and do again?
Yeah, it'd be nice if you could get it, but I don't know if anyone would be able to afford it. No, seriously, they went to town, but it was great. I often joked afterwards, just saying that I think our stay in the hotel cost the bank more money than the amount I left with on that Tuesday morning, you know?
Yeah, I like the idea of you as your advice where somebody says, I'm really worried, and you saying to them, did you have a shotgun pointed at you, did you? Now, think about
right.
And personal training as well too. Here's a tip I learned. That's great. So Graham, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Colm.
Thanks for telling the story. We really appreciate it, because it is dredging up something that was hard to experience. Will we find, if we want to find, so first of all, somebody asked about Nuala. There's a website to find out more about Nuala, which we will ask somebody to send on, and we'll put that up on the chat. But for you, Graham, I was serious when I said it. Any personal training you want to advertise, let us know. If there's any, can we find you anywhere? Are you in that trade? Is that the same, Graham?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I work in a gym called Diamond Fitness. It's in Baldoyle. So they're on, Cillian is the owner. He has it on Instagram and Facebook.
So they might look that up, look you up and say,
yeah, and you'll find me through there. Yeah,
I want Graham to help me overcome, get me out of a rut. All right, yeah. Okay. So that was Graham, and before we come to Callie, who's our final storyteller, just let me find. We had some stories from people who talked about escapes, and so some people sent in stories. Barbara Moggerly sent in, I worked in Dubai in 2016. I'd looked forward to sunshine and some R&R. Instead, I worked 100+ hours a week. I couldn't sleep. There were 13 generators the size of mobile homes under my window. I lost 2.5 stone in 3 months. I couldn't quit. If I did, my employer could demand 4 months salary. Debt in Dubai means debtor's prison. I eventually resigned, regardless of the consequences. I had a massive seizure. A couple of hours later, in the hospital between brain scans and kidney tests, my employer requested PowerPoint presentations. I arrived home a week later. So thank you to Barbara for that. And we're delighted you escaped that. It's funny what people see as being the must go to place. The dream place to go to becomes a prison in its own way. So thanks, Barbara, for sending that in. We have, just checked, do we have Ted and Declan on the line? Because on Instagram, let me just check if there's a Ted. Is Ted the name of the, oh, Declan's the name of the person, isn't it? Do we have a Declan? No Declan there, is there?
Ted is the dog, as I recall. And then
yeah,
is the...
unless he's in under somebody else. Make yourself known if you're Declan with a dog called Ted, because you featured on our Instagram stories during the week. Let me find the chat here. And by the way, just for Graham, just some people saying well done for telling the story, saying I'd love to take that message home, being a warrior myself, from Julie in Czech Republic. Don't sweat the small stuff, great message. So a lot of people responding very positively to that. Graham, Julien, do we want to say anything, or will we, or we had one bit of news we wanted to share, or will we do that after Collie?
I think we'll leave it till after Collie.
Okay, so everybody is muted except me and Julien. So let me find Collie, make sure that Collie is now unmuted. Actually, sorry, we'll unmute all, isn't that right? We unmute all first of all to welcome Callie Ennis to the stage. So our final storyteller of the evening, we'll give a huge welcome to Callie Ennis.
We're in the quiz.
Mute all, everybody, again, and then unmute. And it's always one of my favorite parts, apart from the stories themselves. My favorite.
That sounds like something out of Hellblazer or something crazy.
My favorite part is that brief glimpse into everybody's house, because I'm just nosy. So I'm going to be contacting you all individually, asking you about particular aspects of interior decoration and where you got that. Somebody there with a UCC Patrick Street poster. I'll be asking you where you got that. It was framed. It was the fella doing this, actually. I think he might have been just doing kettlebells and then put them down. So, and hi to Michael, Pepsi Max, Michael Noonan. Anyway, so we are ready. So Collie is ready. Take it away, Collie Ennis.
How you doing? So my name's Callie Ennis, and as far back as I can remember, since I was a little child, I've been fascinated with the lesser loved creatures of this world, the bugs, the slugs, the creepy crawlies. When I was a kid, I would get the old Christmas biscuit tins that you'd get off your granny, big metal ones, and I'd poke holes in them, and I'd keep various slugs, snails, spiders, beetles in them. I'd separate them all out by species, and I'd learn how to breed them, and then I'd keep their young and breed them on in jars, build up a little collection for myself. Went out, bought every kind of nature book and watched every Attenborough documentary, like, you know, religiously. So it's a big passion of mine from a very young age. And then one day when I was around 8, I went into George Street Arcade Pet Shop, which was a fairly famous pet shop in Dublin city centre. And just in the main arch, as you walked in, they had all their fish tanks there. And the first tank had a little animal in it called a fire-bellied newt, about that size. And to me, it just blew my mind, because all we have in Ireland are smooth newts, or regular newts, and our frogs. So, which I would kind of be very aware of, but I hadn't seen anything like this. To me, this was like a dragon or a dinosaur, something magical, completely different. So I begged and I asked, could I get that as a pet? And I did. And that started off a whole lifestyle change for me. From that age, I kept that newt up on the wall where most people would have photographs of footballers and rock stars. I had a fish tank with a newt in it, and several more terrapins and tortoises and frogs would spread out. And as I grew older, I got more. And when I moved out and got my first apartment, I converted all the wardrobes into enclosures for different animals, and I'd had them all on shelves. So when the landlord came in, I could just close my doors over. You wouldn't notice. I also kept a large collection of scorpions and spider under my bed, and none of my callers at the time knew, so I kept that quite secret. When I started going out with my wife and got serious, I had to introduce her to the critters. So that was interesting, and bringing her into the room slash the bedroom slash herpetarium, where I kept all my cages full of animals. And I think the first time she was in the room, actually, I was babysitting a rattlesnake for a mate of mine, which was in the deep end. But that passion went on with me, and when we eventually got married and I moved into my first house, and we decided that I couldn't keep all these animals in the house. Well, not all of them, not the mad ones. So I built myself a shed out the back garden, which is aptly called the critter shed. And I converted it into basically a lab and a room with each individual enclosure met out for the specific care of each individual animal in it, with temperature gauges and all that stuff. When the crash happened in 2008, I ended up getting a load more animals because people were emigrating and I had to look after them. I also work with Trinity College with the zoology department there. So these animals became part of my work, them as in introducing students to the animals, not just a book. You get to actually hold it, you get to learn how to work with it. And doing public outreach in schools, encouraging young kids to get into science, to get that spark, seeing those animals and getting that spark and that joy and that interest in the natural world, which a lot of kids are missing out on nowadays because of the digital disconnect. They're all stuck in iPads or on computers, and it's just, if you can get that little spark of interest in them, it can really start something special. Part of the gig of bringing or doing these talks in schools is bringing animals to and from schools. So I will pack them up in bags or in boxes and put them in a bag, kind of an army sack, because they're just bugs. And I bring them off to the schools, and then I come back and I put them down in the kitchen and I'd have a cup of tea, and then I bring them out to their individual enclosures and pop them in. And one day I had done this, I had my tea, I went out to the shed, I put Mr. Frog in his enclosure, I opened up the next one, Mr. Snake, I put him in his enclosure, and then I found an empty box. And I went, oh shit, something's not in its box. So I checked the bag, it wasn't in the bag, so I said, well, I definitely opened the bag in the kitchen. So I realized the only place it could have gotten out was in our kitchen. And what had disappeared on me was about this long, about as thick as my finger, so about 7 or 8 inches long. Looks like a snake, but has about 270 legs and a pair of antennae. And it is a giant train millipede. It's a species of African millipede. They call them train millipedes because in the breeding season, when they climb up into the tops of the trees to find mates, they look like choo-choo trains going one after the other. So I had a dilemma. What do I do? Do I tell my family, my beautiful family, that I have lost a fairly large bug around the house? Or do I keep it quiet and say nothing and just hope that he shows up? So I decided to do the latter and not say anything. I left out some cucumbers at night, like Santa Claus, on the ground for the millipede to have a munch on. And I was just kind of hoping that maybe I'd stumbled in from the pub some evening and we'd cross paths and that would be the end of it. But about a week and a half to 2 weeks went past and I still hadn't found him. And what was really interesting was the food that I was putting out that had been disappearing wasn't disappearing anymore. So I was kind of a little bit concerned. Anyway, one day I was in work, it was just early morning, I'd gone in to do some work in Trinity and I got a phone call from my wife, and it was very animated, the phone call, as in my eardrum nearly exploded, because what had happened was she was pouring out a bowl of Kellogg's Special K for herself, and she's sitting down at the table, and as she poured out the bowl, a plastic toy fell out, and she was genuinely confused as to why there was a plastic toy when they hadn't done that in years, and especially in an adult Special K box. So she looked at the box to see what was the offer they were given, and then she realized as she looked down that the plastic toy was slowly unfurling itself and walking out of the bowl. That's when she realised that it was probably one of my animals had gotten loose and actually had eaten its way into the bottom of the Special K and had survived quite well off this nutritious breakfast cereal for a good week and a half to 2 weeks. So anyway, I talked her through what to do. It's not a dangerous animal, it's a vegetarian, but still not something you want in your breakfast bowl. So we got her to put the bowl over the Mr. Millipede, and I came home and collected him, put him in his enclosure, and faced the music. Spent a couple of nights on the couch, but bought a lot of flowers and chocolates. But it went away in the end, and we kind of have a laugh about it now. The lesson I learned from the whole experience was if it's not something that everybody can take on, but if you do have a giant African insect crawling around your house, you're probably better off being honest about it in the first place.
Callie Ennis, everybody.
Hey.
I'm Callie Ennis. Mute all and find Callie now. 1 second. Callie, unmute Callie. Hi, Callie. Lots of things struck me about that. One was the idea that when your landlord called around, and then in the next sentence you said, I also kept a lot of scorpions, as if that was in direct response to your landlord calling around. Also, a lot of people, I noted this as well to myself, your 1950s Irish novel for women description of people arriving at your house, calling them callers. Did you have a lady caller? Did she stay for tea? And I like the idea of somebody being unaware. I'm not going to make the joke about being unaware there was scorpions underneath the bed until she felt the prick. I won't tell that joke because we don't know who's listening. So I'm just saying a joke I wouldn't tell. So everybody loving that, loving your enthusiasm about wildlife. Lots of people loving the science outreach, but you do not only do that in Trinity, but you do it in a way now that people can do without leaving their own homes. The Critter Shed podcast.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Myself and the wonderful Colette Kinsella, who's my co-host and partner in the Critter Shed, we have come up with, we've been doing it for about a year and a half, and we've come up with a different approach to natural history, where we do stuff like this. We just try and make it, you could be a scientist on the top level and enjoy it, or you can be the person delivering the mail and enjoying it. It doesn't matter. It's very accessible to all. And it's just one of those things. We get experts on to talk about it, but we break it down. So it's fun. It's a little bit blue sometimes, but yeah, it really is good crack. And it's something I really enjoy doing.
And also because we have a habit of supporting cuddly animals like pandas or koalas, which are lovely animals, but they really, oh, look who's that.
Yeah, it's the star of the show.
It's the star of the show. Look at him unfurling his way around your thumb there.
That's
Does he have a
the
name?
one. That's the very
Mr.
man.
Millipede.
That's the very
watch
guy.
The numbers of people at the meeting absolutely plummet now.
Well, you're very lucky now. You can't get through the screen to you.
You can't get through the screen.
That's the idea.
You know, my therapist, African Millipede Can't Hurt You, Collie Ennis. Here he is. And does he have a name?
Millie Vanilli, actually.
Oh, very good. Can't really call him pedo, I suppose.
No,
Millie's going to go for Millie. So that's Collie Ennis. Check out the Critter Shed there, and everybody's loving him. I like the idea of a millipede in a Special K ad as well, too. The millipede eating the bowl of Special K, kind of leaning against a wall, and you can see the lovely shape, how good a shape the millipede is in after eating Special K as well, too. Millie Vanilli, from Ian there. That's for your next millipede. So we are at, before we, actually we've done our thank yous. Well, before we do a thank you to all our storytellers, Julien, do we want to tell people about coming up next and that kind of thing, and a few other little messages as well too? So if you stick around for a second.
Yeah, so we have two big things. Crazily enough, we are going to be celebrating our 3rd birthday party. which is amazing, and it's one of the highlights of the year, and sadly can't actually happen with real birthday cake that we usually try and give out to everybody. But we will be planning something special. It'll probably be the third week of May. So if you want to come along to that, we're going to obviously invite you all. Just make sure you join the mailing list. The mailing list is the key to it all. So if you head over to the dublinstoryslam.com, you should be able to subscribe to our mailing list. And then the other thing is kind of something that, you know, myself and Colm kind of feel weird about asking, but
we're getting married. We want you. No, it's something else.
We need your support. We need your help, because we are doing these story slams purely because we want to bring people together. When we do them live, we kind of see the connection that happens between the audience and the storytellers, and people who arrive as strangers, leaving as friends, and all those kind of cliches. But like, it really is always blows us away at just how amazing storytelling can be, and the type of stories that we share at this Dublin Story Slam are those personal ones where you're recounting an experience, but there's a whole point to you recounting your experience. Like the thing that with all of the stories tonight, hopefully you got, was that there was really strong messages as well. So we love to work with people on their stories and help them refine them, make them as powerful as possible, but always be able to deliver a message that maybe tomorrow, the next day, 6 months down the line, you'll be able to, maybe it might stick out when you are yourself in a time of need.
So storytellers are not other people, they're everybody.
They're everybody. So we want to keep that going. So what we've done is, like, we're not kind of really mad into the whole Patreon kind of thing. So we've come up with a very quaint way of how you can support us. We're basically going to give you a link that I'll put into the chat section. And it's basically, you buy a little ticket. A ticket of goodwill is actually what we're going to call it.
You get a free millipede.
Yeah. And so this basically, you can just give like a $5 or a $10, or if you're really feeling generous, you can give us 20 euros. And that's just basically going to like keep this thing going from the website and the podcast and all the boring stuff, the logistics of it. But most importantly, it's going to help us keep the shows free, which what we really, really want to do. I mean, we probably could charge, but we just kind of think that now really is the time for people to come together for stories. We're not sure when we're going to be physically back in a space, but we think that if we can kind of open them up, then we're going to get as many people from all around the world, which is incredible. It's something that we never even thought of. So we want to keep that going. But also then we want to be able to work with other charities and bring you very important kind of stories that need to be told. So all that requires is a little bit of money in the bank. We've been pretty devastated by the old COVID thing, because we're well, what's the phrase, Colm? You're
broke, Julien. No, that's fine. It's fine.
Yes, it's even beyond broke. So anything basically you can give. I know everybody's kind of, you know, plugging for cash and any kind of support, and there are incredible charities out there that do also need your support. But if you enjoyed tonight, if you've ever listened to a podcast, if you've ever been to one of our live events and you want to keep that going, then if you do this,
it's in the chat there. As somebody suggested, throw it into the email as well too.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll send out an email anyways to everybody as well, and maybe spread the word as well. And also, most importantly, if you do yourself, like if you have a story that you really want to tell to, you know, a large room full of strangers all around the world on their couches and into their homes, then do get in contact with us. Because we love to work with people from lots of different backgrounds, lots of different stories. It can be a small story, it can be a big, massive story, just as long as it's personal and it's true, and you feel that, look, I think everybody would benefit from hearing this story. We want to hear from you. So just email us, story@thedublinstoryslam.com. The theme for our birthday show is going to be home. So if you have any particular stories that resonates with, do get in contact with us, and sure we'll take it from there. That's it.
Thanks a million, Julien. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute, because what I want to do is pay special tribute to our wonderful storytellers. So I'm going to unmute everybody. For Callie and Graham, good to see you all in all your of this community around the world. can. Sula's saying that as well too. The song that used to get the Through the Ice Void by Christy Moore.
No.
Great time. I'm going to mute all and with Julien. Is there anything else we need to say? Julien?
Do you want to read out one of the stories just to finish off with, and then also can we say hello to Ted, the dog?
Is Ted the dog there? Where do we find?
Sorry, is it Mairead, or if you can tweet me?
Mairead McDonald, is it, or Mairead? Check there. Mairead.
Whatever you read out the other one.
Is that the one about? That's not the one about the dog, no.
No, you just read out one of your stories. Alice Walsh, maybe.
Alice. Okay, so I had ended a 2-week hike in the mountains in above Chiang Mai in Thailand. It had been a tough trip as the monsoon rains arrived early. We were making our way through treacherous mountain passes, bridges, and trees were washed away. Feeling exhausted, I spent the day before my departure packing my rucksack, getting my clothes laundered in the hotel. As I sat at 11 a.m. on the patio eating a late breakfast, water appeared from nowhere, and in no time it was up to my knees. Panic broke out as staff urged residents to evacuate. The reservoir above the village had burst its banks and was likely to engulf the area. In a frenzy, I grabbed my belongings, raced off, not knowing how to navigate away from danger. I ran onto the road before I was engulfed in a swift-moving, black, smelly river. Suddenly, my feet went from under me. I was sinking down, water rising above my waist. People gathered around me to help in removing my stinking clothes. By some miracle, the laundry boy from the hotel arrived with my clean, dry clothes. A taxi was willing to take me to catch the night train to Bangkok. 300 people that night were killed by those unexpected monsoon rains. I recalled a long time later, a fortune teller in Port Stewart in Northern Ireland told me I had a protective aura which would always save me from even the worst disasters. Wow, Alice Walsh. We want to hear more about that story. Alice Walsh, again, just took us out of our sitting rooms all the way to the mountains above Chiang Mai. So we know there's so many stories out there from people, and as Julien said, we'd love to work with you all. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have.
We're going to unmute. We're going to try something with a pet because we haven't had an animal on.
So, we're going to unmute all. So, is everybody's pet to be?
No, just say a quick hello to Maeve McDonough. I'm going to.
So, a quick hello to Maeve McDonough. Will I look for Maeve and see if we can get her pet talking?
It's 8 years.
And I knew this.
Oh, Maeve McDonough. Is that Maeve? Say it again, there, Maeve. Unmute Maeve. Where's Maeve? Sorry, unmute Maeve. Hi Maeve. Hi.
This is Ted. He came to attention at the last live story slam, and people were quite taken with him. I can't believe that I'm letting this dog lick my hand. I don't like dogs. I've never liked dogs, but Ted has taken a shine to me. He's not even our dog. He's my son's girlfriend's dog, and they were going to Vancouver, and they said, "Dad, will you mind Ted while we're in Vancouver?" And that was 5 years ago. And Ted and I have bonded.
Oh, hey Ted. Look at him. Whoosha, musha. Everybody do it. Oh. Is it Julien, is it? We say goodbye, Julien.
Yes, thank you so much to all our wonderful storytellers. Don't forget mailing list to stay up to date with what's happening with us. And yeah, any support you can give, greatly appreciated. And we'll reveal more exciting plans on at the end of May for our big 3 birthday.
All right, I'm going to say goodbye. Kids have to go to bed. And thanks a million to all our storytellers. Julien, you'll say an after thank you to our storytellers. Bye.
Yeah, we're going to give it one more time for Nuala Moore, Graham Dunn, and Callie Ennis, I'm just going to give you unmute all, and then we'll all say good night. So here we go. Unmute. Big applause.
Someone said I would die for you.
What a dog! Great, guys. Thank you so much for taking part and for continuing to make this happen. We will talk to you next month. We'll see you then, okay?